Hello YouTube, welcome back to Case Technologies, and today I got an exciting video for you. The most exciting one yet. This is what you need to know as far as dev tools in 2021. I think this will help just about anyone in their career. If you're junior, mid-level, senior in your career, if you're late in the career, or if you're early in the career, you can still utilize these tools today and get a lot out of them. The number one spot, or the first one coming in right now, that I kind of have a little bit of love for right now, a lot of love for, is Terraform. And all Terraform is basically it's infrastructure as code. You lay down a code base, you initialize it, and then you apply it or run it. And then once that code is ran, it can set up everything for you. You can set up your cloud instances, it can set up your Docker instances, or whatever you might be using within your infrastructure. It can set that up for you consistently. And then it can also break it down and destroy. So it has a nice cyclical approach to your infrastructure. All right. And right here I have an example. You set up your stuff right here. If you want to interact with AWS, it will say resource, AWS instance, IAC in action, Omni instance type, availability zone, your key name, your VPC security groups. Now, of course, you would really have to have most of that set up, or you would have to start it up and create it in this process or approach. And then right here, you would go through the plan part. After you create your Terraform file, you would just plan it out. And after it goes through the checks down here on this last line, and it's good, you can go ahead and do apply, and it runs it for you. And you can write all sorts of config files. You have installable modules. You can plan and predict, dependency graphing, state management, and so on and so forth. And this is why this is number one on my list right now. You should definitely go to the site and check it out and see if your team or your community could be using this now. Your employer will love you for it. If you want to be a rock star, there it is. Just come to their website and hit get started. Whatever platform you're using for your infrastructure, you can go ahead and use that. I primarily use AWS for most of my issues and infrastructure. And they have a video right here for you. Plenty of documentation to help you get through whatever issues you need to get through. And there you go. That's number one. So I can go ahead and delete that and move on to the next one. Now, number two is Ansible. I love Ansible for those repetitive items. You can just go ahead and create playbooks. And that's how Ansible does its thing. It interacts with operating systems and interact with network devices as well. And you don't need an agent. That's why I love Ansible. You don't need an agent to interact with your infrastructure. You don't have to set anything up prior on the end item. You can just go ahead and implement whatever you need to do. You can touch it, get in and out via SSH, and you're done. All right. If you're dealing with virtualization, if you have a private cloud, anything, container automation, it can do the entire suite. All right. It can push out code. It can update your web servers, your application, whatever it may be. It can touch your network devices. It does all that. So you can automate your network with Ansible, which is easy. And they're right, it has a lot of modules, and these are the network devices that it deals with. And I'm just going to click on Cisco because I've worked with them, and I've worked with Cisco devices and implemented different playbooks to interact with them. And you can explore the network modules right here. And that's all you would do is come to their documentation if you wanted to use it. And you just pick on whatever it is you're trying to do. If you're working with access control lists, banners, configs, or if you just want to get facts, iOS facts is a huge one. because you might want to just gather basic information, and this is how you would set it up. You just say name, you would call it something. You say iOS facts, gather subset, and you just say all, right? If you want something just one, you would just say, I just want the config, and so on and so forth. It's very robust. There is a lot to it. However, it'll be more helpful than it is painful. So that's why that one brings in the number 2 spot. And number 3, we have Docker. Docker is a container service which allows you to spin up multiple server instances, or server instances, not what a full VM would be, but it's actually just a container. So you don't have to worry about these crazy robust systems that you have to manage. You just have Docker do a few items. Your Docker containers do a few items, get a few things done for you. Less overhead on your hardware, less overhead on your admins. And you can also set up Docker files and configurations and a whole gamut of other tools and support data that you can use with Docker to help you in your fleet. All right, it goes through its build process. You can utilize it with AWS ECS, Azure ACI, Google GKS, Kubernetes. You can share your Docker images. You can run multiple images, and they also have a great container image repository, I would call it. So you go to community. Let me see, open source. And you can view all their open source items if they support. And you can find them all here and containered. They have Docker Desktop, Docker Hub. And I'm just going to do Docker images. Here we go. So, this is just a site, but here, Docker Hub. Here you go. And you could pick any type of image you want. You say Ubuntu. And they already have it. Someone already has an image built for it. This is the official Ubuntu. You could download and start using it today. You can say Ansible or something like that. And someone's already built a baseline Ansible instance. However, this is 2 years old. They also have the open source version of Ansible Tower, which is AWX. So if you didn't want to go through all of the building of that, you could do that. They also have a great image for Elk, so that you don't have to do all the separate parts of Elk. Or at least they used to have it in there. But you definitely could look for that and figure it out if you look. And that's why that one is number 3. And we're talking about DevOps. So if you're going to be writing a lot of Terraform files, you're going to be stepping in and out of Ansible. You're going to be using Docker files. You have to have some way to store them and keep up with your files and all your workflow. So you have to know how to use Git, because you're going to be in an environment where you're definitely going to be using some type of documentation store like GitHub. And we can come to GitHub and let me see, Ansible, for example. And this is where you have to get familiar with looking at other people's code, looking at other people's configurations and setup. let's see, I typed in Ansible. We want Playbooks. All right, yeah, it's Gearling guy. So he definitely has something. If you want to set up your, let's see. Yeah, so you have to be able to look through all this. This is a playbook right here. You have to be able to find it, be able to use blame, find out who did what, create pull requests. All right. So you have to get familiar with Git, and Git is, Git is, of course, free and open source. But here's documentation on it. You want to get as familiar with this as possible before you step into an environment and you have to use it, because it's going to become overwhelming and a bit much for you if you're not familiar with it, with branches and paths and how to configure different things, how to check out different branches, how to create merges. And that's number 4. Now, at number 5, it's really a tie, and you kind of got a glance at that earlier, with Splunk and Elk. Now, depending on how robust your environment is, how secure it needs to be, what your budget is like, that will determine which route you go. You can set up an Elk stack on your own, and it is open source. However, if you want support, or if your environment needs support, I'm just going down the site for you very slowly so you can see it. You're going to have to pay something. Now, Elk is made up of mainly 3 things. Logstash, well, the E is Elasticsearch, then you have Logstash, and then you have Kibana, right? Elasticsearch is what searches across the data. Logstash is what brings the logs into to your central host, and then Kibana is the visualizer portion of it. Beats and Logstash are pretty much the same as far as logs though. And here's the LSAT is an acronym for 3 open source projects: Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. Elasticsearch is a search and analytics engine, and Logstash is a server-side data processing pipeline that ingests data from multiple sources simultaneously. So just think of a log server when you think of Logstash. Kibana, just think of the GUI, and Elasticsearch is really the one parsing the data. And the community is just getting larger and larger, of course, because, like I said, it is open source, so you can go ahead and use it in your day-to-day. If you're a systems team or a DevOps team, now if you're a large enterprise company and you do have a budget and you're trying to keep your stuff as secure as possible, and you need something that's fully robust, supported, and people have a lot of experience with, then you want to roll with Splunk. Okay, Splunk is huge. Splunk is really good at what they do. They work a lot with I see them a lot with security teams. A lot of security teams use them. Splunk really gets in the weeds. However, it can be very costly in your environment. If you do recommend it, keep in mind you have to have a solid budget. And thanks for tuning in. This is the end of the video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you next time.